Mutant Mechatron RPG Basics. It's all in the title, but just to cover that this is to do with Free League Publishing's, the Swedish publisher RPG game series, or Fria Ligan, as they're known there. The Mutant series. This is one of the 4 that you can play within that universe. Our group have already played GenLab Alpha. This video is also for my group, so that they can get a handle on what this is. This information that I'm going from at the moment is in the Mechatron main book, if they want to read it, but I'm covering it here because some players aren't really that big on reading the book. So let's cover it. So you all get to play as robots, and you are robots in the Mechatron 7 facility, Robot City, and you're going about your usual day doing robot-y things, and then one day something changes in you and you feel different, and you go through a transformative process where you gain sentience. So this is one of these kind of campaigns that's all about the philosophical elements. Is it better for the individual, better for the civilization as a whole? Which is more important? The needs of the one over the other? What does it mean to be alive anyway? And those kind of tropes. As for the facility itself, going straight from here, you're also Mechatron 7, the city that you live in. It's also known as the Collective. It's got like a collective consciousness. There's kind of a networked internet that runs there at all times through all of the robots. You and the rest of the Collective were built by the humans of the Titan power called Noatan. So in this universe there are 3 Titan powers, and in GenLab Alpha we got to experience the point of view of one of them. Now you get to experience the point of view of a different one, Noatan. And their symbol is like the Kraken sort of thing, rounded. The emergence of true artificial intelligence and new generations of robots allowed Noatan to create great facilities in the depths of the oceans to escape the devastation on the surface. And again, we know something happened, and there was the great wars between the Titan powers and stuff that happened. But hey, it's a wreck up there. But the greatest of them all was Mechatron 7, which is your home. And it was during the war between the Titan powers that humans living in Mechatron 7 chose suddenly to leave the facility. You and the remaining robots were left behind, along with mankind's last order. And this is the key bit. Build what we need to win. So decades passed since then. You don't know why the humans abandoned you or when they will be coming back. But you've tried to, keep the orders going, the last order you had. And therein lies the problem. You see, you're a machine, so you will just follow the orders. That's effectively what you're supposed to do. Follow the orders as something with a greater hierarchy level than you, or, indeed, a human. So you've been trying to do this, run the facility, you and the rest of the Collective. But Mechatron 7 has decayed. What was once order and efficiency is now a robot society on the verge of collapse. Warehouses that have not already collapsed are overfilled, many robots are in bad condition, and factories stand quiet and deserted. The decay has also affected the Mechatron 7 data archives and the memories of the robots, yours included. Information has been corrupted, been lost, or saved improperly, leading to confusion, odd behaviour, and accidents. So a lot of this comes from, the robots still trying to carry out the last orders they had, and it's not working well because they're not getting new supplies from the outside. They're completely cut off. So they're having to try and reprocess things to use again. but you know, efficiency is going to decline over a while if you're completely insular, 100% insular, like they are. But Mechatron 7's got a whole load of other things going on, a whole load of other problems. Like, for instance, elements from the outside are starting to get in. Creatures from the zone starting to manage to find their way inside here and there. There's a few sort of out-of-the-way, lawless areas of Mechatron 7, for example. And the whole thing's built around the Mechatron 7 map. That's the map you get for the campaign, which, you know, you can buy separately or get as a digital copy and that. It takes place in a campaign called Ghost in the Machine, because that's effectively what you become. That sentience suddenly that just happens overnight for all of the party, with no real reason or understanding why. And the other thing about the awakening, and you know, it's let you think freely and stuff, but not all of the other robots have awakened. So a number of them would look at you with some suspicion, some misunderstanding, and you know, they might report you for having errors. And of course you'd be on the same network as them, so that's potentially instantaneous. And it comes from this whole thing of like, if one of them has a suitable hierarchy greater than yours and they give you an order, it's at the point where you choose, you know, do I follow it or not? And you have to do a roll to even see if you like your robotic self is going to take over and you're just going to start doing that. But you have the option to attempt to not follow the order. You can attempt to rail against your programming to follow that order, whereas non-sentient robots can't even attempt that. Of course, with something like a human, well, you know, all bets are off then. Unless, of course, you're a companion bot and then you have extra skills and powers with humans. As for animal mutants, well, probably not so much, you know. But that's another interesting aspect, isn't it? Because in playing Gen Lab Alpha, you're up against the robots. And here, you know, maybe you get to be the robots. But you know, you've become sentient, you've become alive, you now have feelings, thoughts, dreams of the future. The other important thing is that the way humans built the robots of the city was so that they would all collectively feel like a more natural society for the humans to coexist in Mechatron 7 with them. There's even like a human quarters, of which is now obviously deserted, but it's where all the humans used to live. And the idea would be, you know, you could go to a bar or whatever in the city, entertainment district or whatever, and you know, robots would come in and start acting human, start ordering things on the menu. But of course, they are all things that are useful for them, you know, like oil, and those kind of robot-y needs are met, but it's through like a menu, and, you know, you appear to be choosing something, and so all robots were programmed to start behave that way, you know, knock off work and, you know, hey, I deserve a night out, go get something made for me instead of the normal process packets, and that kind of behaviour is actually all in the program. So that's why these bars were already set up. But now with the advent of more and more awakened robots, these bars actually get to be, or bars or other entertainment facilities, which is quite a wide net really, isn't it, to cast, all get to legitimately be used by robots, thinking freely and using it their way. But, you know, there may be some other present who don't know what the hell you're doing in some cases. So it's this idea also of watching kind of how much you say, what you do, and whether you want to watch what you say and what you do, and whether there'll be consequences for not doing so, or indeed for doing so. So that's kind of the idea of the campaign, and you know, just like Gen Lab Alpha, you can attempt to, you know, get out of it and maybe carry on playing these characters. And the way we finished Gen Lab Alpha was that the surviving characters will then have the Ability to come on in and jump in should we ever play Mutant Year Zero proper, the whole zone experience. They could come in maybe with like some animal alts or whatever. I'm thinking the same here. Any robots that, if the story ends in such a way that they'd be out in the zone perhaps, or they could find their way to the zone, then there's nothing to say that one player's robot character can't team up with a different player's animal character and team up with a different player's mutant, and all like helping the arc together. The other thing is, in these books there are suggestions for how to run a lot of this as arc projects and things if you happen to be doing it in Mutant, and specific arc projects for that kind that expand by being that kind. Or you could just have an arc out there that is specifically all animals or all robots or whatever. So, yeah, the idea on the campaign is to eliminate errors, as they're called. So the robots that are behaving this way, these awakened robots, they are errors in the system. So the irony is that you newly awakened robots happened to effectively, your role you'll be brought into the error elimination unit to be part of the quality assurance department, which is a fancy way, a business speak way of saying that you'll get to go out on missions and deal with other robots that are misbehaving because they are awakened. You become federal agents, if you like, of the main AI who runs the facility, called Nodos. Ironic, isn't it, that you've just awakened and that's happening? So, yeah, but they're definitely interested in you, and they want you to deal with it, so go figure. Erratic robots and dealing with them when you yourself are an erratic robot. How much of that do you want to hide? I mean, it's like you're having to hide in plain sight at that point. The very people that are trying to hunt awakened robots have hired you to hunt down awakened robots. That's crazy. How are you going to play that? There's a real problem there for a party to decide on, going about that. Of course, there's next paragraph here, fight for resources. And there is the constant lack of that, the wear and deterioration. The whole place is run down, it's leaking, and as we've said, it's under the water, and there's sections where the humidity's getting in, and flooded areas and flooded tunnels, and it's just they can't cope, and it's at a breaking point now. And all of the big AIs that run everything, under the main one that runs all of them, Nodos, must be aware of this. So, maybe that's why the error elimination unit is in effect. Maybe they're trying to achieve something. But there's this constant need for supply, and the biggest supply issue comes from energy. You have a limited number of energy points in a day, and you're always desperately scrambling for more. We'll come back to energy points, but just to take into account that they are the most sought after rare resource that you will use for all the most fundamental things, and there's never going to be enough of them. Their energy points are effectively your mutant points or feral points or whatever from the other systems, but they are everything else as well. And the state of the facility itself will worsen with every passing session, with every strategic turn of the session. And unlike back when we played GenLab Alpha, the hook between sessions, the mini game you play, is essentially just to see how much the 4 stats that create Mechatron 7, how much those stats have declined that week. Basically, it's kind of a base management where everything's going down, and there are tiny opportunities to try and increase those stats, but they are extremely rare and difficult. So the decline looks impossible to stop. You may be able to temporarily plug the gap, and that's the idea, really. all existing here in this facility, cut off from everything. You've probably never been outside unless you were one of the few that Nodos sent up to the surface on scouting missions. If you were that kind of class of robot, and we've got quite a few robot classes in this one, which is pretty cool. It's essentially uses the same mechanics as the other Mutant systems. If you've played one of them, like my players have played GenLab, most of it would be familiar. But there are a few key differences. The other thing is that some of these PDFs, like with the GenLab and with this one, they have slight rule differences in how something is handled. So one example would be how Mutant uses initiative, whereas GenLab handled initiative differently, and so this may do something different again, and it's been a while since I took a pass over initiative. But I'm trying to get ready and look back over it again now too, with a view to running soon, if that's possible. The other thing is, just like GenLab, I want to run it as quite a fast campaign. I don't want to add anything in. I want to just, go through all the content of the campaign itself. If the players want to extend anything, expand anything, they can. It would be player-generated content rather than GM-generated. So I would just keep offering them this, and it would be done and over with quite short. Maybe even a bit faster than the GenLab one was, because we expanded around a little bit of that explorative kind of thing, and that's kind of one of the things that's somewhat missing here. You don't have that kind of zone and Paradise Valley element of I'll explore from this bit over to this bit and see if all the random encounters might happen in between the two. There's nothing in here that actually handles that. I mean, you could maybe do it in some areas, as I say, some of the more lawless, outlandy kind of bits of the facility. You could start rolling on tables and things like that. But overall, it's actually a decent enough. The collective, it is a society. My pole is rocking. The pole that I've put the phone up against. Worrying. I'll change it. There we go. And there's not going to be like encounters with monsters on the streets. I mean, that sort of thing would be very rare. So you might meet characters, certain kind of robotic characters and stuff. What would have been interesting would have been kind of little role play encounters that you could roll up and find out about, because as I say, there's nothing facilitating kind of okay, we've done our mission for the day, let's go to the entertainment district, and there's nothing to kind of facilitate what that walk around looks like, or kind of who you might bump into, or or whatever. It would have been great if there had been like a little table of something that humanizes the experience, flavors the experience. So I thought that was missing, seeing as you are missing that kind of like travel danger random element, unless of course you ever get out of Mechatron 7 and get into the zone. Then that would be a whole different ball game. You'd then be running you'd run it like Mutant proper. Yeah. So I think that's pretty much a good thing to go on with for now. And in the next video, we'll look at what actually makes a character, what they are, what they're made of, what the stats are, how these differ from the previous games and such. And I'll see you at that video.